Another misconception such social conservatives seem to have is that by acknowledging that marriage and other socio-cultural components are protean or changeable, they become meaningless. That's absolutely nonsense. No, that's not the way it works. They only become meaningless if you allow them to. It's like language. There are people who think that they have some sort of particular love for language, but rail against things such as text speak or colloquial slang or whatever, or when the words are appropriated in popular terms to mean something else. And in so doing, insofar as I'm concerned, they demonstrate that they not only do not love language, they don't understand it either. Language, marriage, and all of the components of society and culture change. They have never, ever, ever, ever been static. And if they ever were, I imagine we would reach a point of cultural stagnation. That is when you would start to see a collapse, a degradation. Just because the parameters of something or the definition of something changes doesn't mean that it's meaningless. In point of fact, their status as things that are constructed, as ideas, makes them sacred to a certain degree. It makes them necessary. There are reasons why we created them in the first place. Marriage specifically can mean a whole variety of things depending on who you are. It can be an expression of your affection and of your devotion to someone. It can be, again, a financial or cultural arrangement. It serves very real, quantifiable functions. And you do not need these complicating factors of it becoming enshrined as something sacred and available only to a specific few who meet particular parameters for it to maintain that significance or meaning. I think most of all it's the fear that disgusts me. It's the fear and the lack of scope that it suggests. The fact that rather than sitting down and considering these factors of culture that do not accord with what their ideal of said culture is, these people think in neurotically surgical terms. Let's just lance it off. Let's just cut it. And in so doing deny that it exists. I mean, this is something that has been pertinent to the place of homosexuality within Western culture for a very, very, very long time. The irony is, of course, is that homosexuality is not a new concept. It's not a new factor at all. It's been around since before humanity, ironically. It's been around since as long as there has been life, insofar as we're aware. And we know from historical records that there are cultures in antiquity that dealt with it better than we do. Or rather than our current cultures do. There is this misconception in the modern English-speaking world, in the USA and in Britain, that we are ultimately and unambiguously advanced in cultural terms, far and beyond anything that exists in antiquity, when of course it's not that simple. If you bother to study them, for example, you know that certain parts of ancient Grecian and Roman and Hindu cultures not only accepted homosexuality as something quite natural and normal, but enshrined it as something special alongside heterosexual love. It was simply something that was acknowledged to occur. But it seems to be a breadth of scope that we've lost somehow. Rather than acknowledging things as they are and attempting to accommodate these non-harmful factors, there are certain rather influential segments of particular cultures in the English-speaking West that neurotically attempt to enforce their preconceptions of what culture and society should be. And it's an ideal they'll never maintain. Not ever. Because the particular standards they are trying to impose are so segregational, so exclusive, and do not accommodate vast swathes of the societies in which they exist.